In our world, we are being presented with many problems. Albert Einstein gave great advice in this matter when he said problems cannot be solved by the level of knowledge or awareness that created them. In other words, we have to get outside our own boxes. Well, a mystic sees beyond a box to what has been hidden or what has been forgotten, what is not seen. My name is Sharon Raji Maynard. It was curiosity that took me on a radical search for answers. And those answers came to me from ancient ones, those in spiritual worlds, unseen to the eye. And this knowledge foundations my podcast, A Mystic's View. Come as you are to see situations through my eyes as we sit together. Diversity, uniqueness, is a natural condition, a natural outcome within humanity, and hearing diverse ideas and thoughts expands our own capacities. So I encourage you to listen to A Mystic's View, to hear, to be enhanced, and to consider other possibilities. I welcome you to this journey. Have you ever written while balancing and sitting on a hammock? Well, neither had I until now. One good thing about the activity of writing is that it happens virtually anywhere. Today I had a chance to visit with one of my granddaughters, so I packed my writing gear and went off to meet her down at the south end of the island. Because I'm a bit more flexible, I decided to go early, wait at our meeting spot, prepared that it might take a while before she could be there. Hence, I find myself in a lovely yard, the sun shining, birds singing, and a hammock stretched between two trees. I was skeptical at first. Would a hammock put me in a stable, good position to write? Or would it be too slanted or too movable? But the only way to know was to climb aboard. With pens in one hand, notebook lying flat on the hammock in the other hand, trying to position me so that the webbing could catch me just in the right way, I settled in. Wahoo! Wow! I was solidly held? Yes, and I could write. This 2019 day is the present. I let my mind wander back to 1984 because that's where we last met. Remember the financial review and the idea that I could participate in the design of my life. Well, I was not awake enough to take on a total review and evaluation, so I looked at what was immediately before me. Finances that didn't work, and a new tool to use to change that. Affirmations. I didn't understand the laws and principles behind affirmation. I did not believe. I just knew I was going to try them on. Curiosity. Positive statements for a more stable financial experience. Aha! And new possibilities for income appeared. Over the next year, I went to a few more lectures and classes that my new friend Richard presented. Eventually, I had moved my Sunday morning attendance from the Mormon congregation to the little green church close to home. I loved the encouragement, trying on something new, considering possibilities. And then, just like my teachers in the unseen, the question I brought to the table of that experience was, is this loving? Is this safe? Is it empowering? And is it respectful of others? Check, check, check. Although I was experiencing greater joy and happiness in my life, some family members back in Utah were still living the old dogma box. Periodically, I would get phone calls to warn me that I was on a downward path, dangerous, outside the shore walk that men of authority had called church members to. I listened, and I did not argue or even try to explain what was happening for me. I remembered that I had been where they were. You don't know what you don't know till you do. What I could continue to do is monitor my own inner sense of well-being. Look at the experience coming into my life and notice what type of people were becoming part of this new way of being. Looking back, one thing that I didn't know is that when you write a new script for your life, when you change the direction from straight ahead with old patterns to a left turn, even if the left turn is 100% better than the straight, the trappings of the old, of the straight ahead, will hold and pull at you. For example, the old dogma pattern that says women need a man in their life in order to be stable and safe. When I let go of that security of following the male authority voice, I had a sense of freedom. I could breathe easier. I was excited that I could make my own plans and make my own life. For a few months, all was smooth. And then I found myself waking up during the night, fearful that I could not pay my bills, regardless that I had plenty of money for them in my bank accounts. But old thinking. Or suddenly I found myself worrying about finding a new partner. Although my life was very full as a single mom with lots of wonderful friends. I just did what I knew to do, which was talk with Sananda and do affirmation. And then one Thursday morning, I took my children, the ones who were still at home, and we drove to a cabin up in Idaho City, just above Boise. Now, I knew I would have to drive down that little mountain on Friday to work, but the children were old enough to be fine while I was gone for the day. Early Friday morning, my alarm went off. Everyone was still asleep. As I turned off the clock and went to roll over to climb out of bed, the room started to spin. I carefully balanced and walked into the bathroom and soon realized that I could not shower. I couldn't stay upright. What to do? I knew if I held my body really steady, I felt fairly fine. Gathering up my clothes for the day, I headed for the car. There was a full bathroom at work. I was early. I just leave, make no quick movements, drive to work. By then, this spinning would certainly have stopped, I reasoned. So sitting in the car helped a lot. And then, as I drove, another energy wave came, a word energy. Rebirthing, rebirthing, repeating over and over again in my mind. Now, I had just heard of that process. It was because a new member and fellow by the name of Peter had begun coming to the little green church. By that time, I was the secretary and the assistant to the minister and was aware of such things. I drove carefully from the cabin and parked in my spot by the church, and then walked inside. The great change to stability I had expected did not happen. So I dialed the minister at home to explain my situation. Well, she said, I'm not feeling all that well today either. I think I'll just work from home. Why don't you rest in the sanctuary until you feel better and can go back home? And then I'll see you on Monday. Great plan. Although rebirthing still marched through my mind. Finally, I rifled through our member file, found Peter's number, and called. Now, here is where I want to take a break. One, I need to move from the hammock that is now in full shade and rather chilly. And two, because I want to give you time to reflect. What does my story cause to emerge from within your life? I'm not sharing my journey from novice to mystic Shaw woman to impress you. My intention is that you will be encouraged, that you will have some new lenses through which to see that your life has been there, not leaving you alone either. What was that about? So pause, see what emerges, and capture that thought, the idea, the situation, or the emotion, and I'll be back. What happened when Peter showed up was nothing less than mysterious. He had me follow him in a pattern of breathing. I don't know how, but my inner vision was crystal clear. I knew I was wrapped in warm blankets, lying securely on the carpeted floor, and I could sense Peter near me, breathing. But another part of my awareness was on experiences going on and on in an internal screen. That screen took me from one lifetime to between life, to another lifetime, to between life, right on through emotions and joys and sadness. Some I had sensed, some I had not. Right up to my current lifetime. They all moved unbidden on that screen of my mind. Now I'm in this lifetime. And I feel my head like it was being split, like a cleaver that had opened a divide at the top. It was not a pain exactly, but I did want to say to Peter, could you just put your hands on either side of my head and hold it together? Instead, I called to Sananda and asked, what does this mean? He was very calm and said, you have said you want to die. And you are saying now that life is joyful and you want to live. Which is it? I was puzzled. At first, I didn't recall wanting to die. I thought, oh, I remember before 1975, life was difficult. I felt trapped, discounted in the very place I thought would be my joy, my marriage. One night I had left my husband in charge of the children to take a solitary walk around the neighborhood in that dusk toward dark. I cried, I screamed. I didn't want my life to go on in this way. Yes, I felt trapped, and I wanted out. But I didn't want to be out until my children could take care of each other. Then I was doubly puzzled. I mean, that was just a very powerful thought. Did we really have that much power? Was my strong cry out, my declaration to be taken, was it really that choice that I was facing? I was sobered. And I still had a question to consider. Do I choose to live or die? The experiences since being in Boise had opened new doors, lifted the heaviness, and I realized I did have the desire to live. And yet, saying no to dying was not easy. It seemed so final. So I hedged my bets. I had some inkling of some new experiences that might be awaiting me, like helping others, contributing in meaningful ways, having great companions, a sense of peace and joy. So this is how I stated my decision. To Sananda, of course. if the experiences I have a sense of are truly mine, then I choose to live. Almost immediately, my head pulled together, my entire body relaxed, and I was back fully present with Peter. That experience alone was very, very meaningful. It became even more amazing when a month later I was in the emergency room of a major hospital in Boise, Idaho. Emergency because of the excruciating pain of kidney stones. Now, if any of you have had that, you know what I'm talking about. Well, the doctor in the emergency room admitted me to the hospital, and I was there for a 5-day stay with rounds and rounds of intravenous antibiotics. After that period of time, I was released and told to check in with my doctor a week down the road, which I did. So as I sat in my doctor's office for that check-in, he scolded me. He said, "Mama, don't do that again." He said, "We lose people from the level of systemic infection you had." Chills ran through my body. Was this the opportunity that could have caused my death? I believe it was. 1984, I was able to make that choice because in 1970, I had been introduced to my spiritual path of guidance. And because in 1984, I had learned about participating in my own life. I was amazed. But that was only the foundation for 1989 in Ogden, Utah, where I was invited to leap off the cliff. Would I leap? Would I fly? Would I fall flat on my face? Come back next week and hear. I want you to know that I appreciate you, the listeners. You can always support this work so that more can hear by sharing, by giving some high-five stars. Check out the Patreon community, because that's an amazing opportunity too. Thanks. See you next week. Thanks for coming along on this episode. These various sharings may stretch your mind, challenge your dogma, awaken new possibilities, or even resonate with your own experiences. I'd love to hear any of that. And you can find me on Facebook under A Mystic's View, and the same YouTube, A Mystic's View. When you see the value of this podcast, please share it with your friends. A Mystic's View is also on Patreon, where those who want to support and be a part of this growing community can participate. That would be at www.patreon.com/A Mystic's View. The pressures of this world is rising, and what does that mean? How can you respond? My intention is that through this podcast, you will gain more insight, encouragement to discover yourself. Until next time, blessings.